council meeting November 15th, 2011.
I would like to call this meeting of the Lisbon Town Council to order. Could we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Twyla, the first item.
Roll call. Counselor Bowie is excused. Counselor Bickford?
Here.
Counselor Cody?
Here.
Counselor Pomelo?
Here.
Counselor Lunt?
Here.
Counselor Mason is excused. Counselor LaRochelle?
Here.
All right, and our first order of business.
Is under public hearings, a renewal special entertainment permit for the Coombs Mountford Post.
All right, I would open up that public hearing. If there's anyone here who would like to speak on that issue. All right. Seeing no one, we will close that public hearing and move to the next item.
A vitulers, a public hearing for a license for the Canton Pearl.
All right, I'll open that public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on that item? All right, seeing no one, we will close that public hearing and move to the next item.
Is under audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Please use the microphone at the podium and state your name and your address for the record. Please limit comments to 5 minutes or less, and individuals are permitted to address the council no more than twice on any subject or agenda item.
Anyone from the public who would like to address us? All right, go ahead, take the podium.
My name is Dorothy Fitzgerald. I'm a longtime resident of the town of Lisbon, Lisbon Falls to be exact. I've got several things here. I'm a little upset. Last Tuesday evening, November 8th, there was an unadvertised workshop. I thought all workshops and meetings were supposed to be publicized. There was no workshop that was advertised or publicized, and I'm wondering why. I've been attending every council meeting and every workshop, as all of you well know.
Oh, go ahead.
It was advertised, and it's been on the calendar for quite a few months. We've been meeting almost every off Tuesday here. It was on our sign out front, so it was advertised. And we've talked about it here at several meetings.
I don't always drive up this way, and I always go on the town's website, and I do not recall seeing that advertised or publicized. Second, later on in the meeting is going to be the second reading of the supplemental appropriation. From a town councilor, I'll use the exact wording, felt that the council was blindsided by questions from the audience, and so the meeting rules were changed. Now there's only audience participation at the very, very beginning of the meeting. So when different items come up, like the supplemental appropriation, et cetera, the public is blindsided because items come up that we have no prior knowledge of, even though we can get a copy of the agenda and of the items that will be brought up. We're still being blindsided. Items come up, and we, the public, we, the taxpayers, do not have an opportunity to comment or question. And as a longtime resident and as a taxpayer, I do not think that is right. Third, the last Tuesday at the election and the referendum, and I brought this up at the last meeting, Ordinance Section 2.07, let's see, amend by adding the, anyway, this ordinance, part of the ordinance, number 3, regulate the rate at which a business or establishment may charge for its services. Why is this there? who put it there, and this is something that should be changed. This is illegal. How can the council regulate what a business can charge for its services? Mr. LaRochelle has an auto body shop. Would he like it if the council regulated what he could charge for his services? As I said, restaurants. Is it right and fair for the council to charge what a restaurant can charge for a meal? What a dentist can charge for cleaning teeth? For any service? Are you, the council, and the town manager going to be changing this, eliminating this?
Okay, go ahead.
That part of the charter, it does not pertain to what you're discussing. It pertains to what the council can set for fees and charge for instance, fines or violations for building permits, for things like that, if I'm not mistaken.
But that's not how the ordinance reads.
Well, that's what it means.
Well,
You have
it's
to take it in
not,
the context of the section that it's in.
it's not self-explanatory.
A lot of laws aren't self-explanatory unless you read the entire document they're in. Mr. Terrio, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Explain it a bit?
I don't have it in front of me, so
Okay.
it's a little bit difficult to comment on it. We know, as a matter of fact, that this council, or anybody in town government, sets rates for private businesses. This refers to, as the manager has indicated, various types of charges that the town has in connection with its business with businesses and other private enterprises. And I might point out, that this is not any language, as I understand it, that was changed. This is a language that was in the original charter as it was adopted. And I think certainly we've been able to work through it since then without too much problem.
Well, I haven't,
It just makes no sense that we would be authorized as a government to dictate what a private business can charge for its services or its products. It makes no sense.
I'll read the entire ordinance. In addition to other acts required by law or by specific provision of this charter to be done by ordinance, those acts of the council shall be by ordinance which, 1, adopt or amend an administrative code, or establish, alter, or abolish any town department, office, or agency. 2, provide for a fine or other penalty, or establish a rule or regulation for violation of which a fine or other penalty is imposed. 3, regulate the rate at which a business or establishment may charge for its services. 4, convey or lease, and this is underlined the change, real or personal property of the town except tax-acquired property. Or 5, amend or repeal any ordinance previously adopted. Acts other than those referred to in this section may be accomplished by ordinance, order, or resolve. Now, where does it say anything about fines? It says regulate the rate at which a business or establishment may charge for its services.
We will look into it and see if there's some other issue there, Dot, but that's not what was changed at the most recent election here. And we're not certainly going to start charging, determining what prices businesses can set for their products. No one has any interest in doing that.
Well, you're always changing ordinances, and I think that's one that needs to be changed. Going to supplemental appropriations that will be coming up later. Let's see, supplemental appropriations. At the previous meeting, the town council voted $8,200 to demolish the property at 3 Village Street in Lisbon Village, $7,000 plus $1,200 to remove the asbestos. It does not say right on this supplemental appropriation, but last week, at the previous meeting, 2 weeks ago, or whatever, 2 weeks ago tonight, the town manager was asking for $15,000 for a supplemental appropriation. So which is it going to be? I can't comment on it later. So which is it? $8,200 or $15,000?
That's a question for you.
For me?
It's 8,200.
Yes.
That's what the cost is.
Okay.
I can answer to
Yes,
that if you'd
you-
like.
yeah.
It says right in the supplemental appropriation that the sum necessary for that demolition will not exceed $8,200. So it's not $15,000.
Right.
It's maximum $8,200, not
Well-
a penny more.
At the previous meeting, town manager was looking for $15,000.
We had discussion about that, and we capped it at $8,200. That's why we're back here with a document that says not to exceed $8,200.
And I do want to explain, the reason it was said 15,000 initially in there was because in case the council had wanted to take one of the higher bids rather than the lowest bid, that was why it was written as a higher amount, so that it wouldn't be, we authorized a bid for 12,000 and then, it was only in there for 8,200.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the town people appreciate hearing that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to address us? All right, go ahead, Don. State your name and place of residence.
My name is Don Fellows from Lisbon side of things. I have just a quick question or statement. The Lisbon County Council meeting rules are here for everyone to read. Unfortunately, I don't see in there what Twyla just said, which was basically the audience participation section limiting to 5 minutes. And we're not doing a very good job of that. I know that we've sat here a long time and different people have had major comments. And I appreciate the idea of wanting to get the comments out. But 9.5 or 7.5 minutes, 8 minutes for Dot just now. And that doesn't include anybody else's comments. We're not sticking by the rules, and I think that at least we ought to print them so people know what they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Anyone else who'd like to address the council? All right, we'll move on. And the next item, Twyla?
Is under the consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have an item removed may do so now. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered next. Seeing none, Order 2011-203, to approve a renewal special entertainment permit and liquor license for the Slovak Catholic Association, a renewal special entertainment permit and liquor license for the Coombs Mountfort American Legion Post 158, and a new victuals license for Song Lin, doing business as the Canton Pearl.
So moved.
All right.
I'd like to second that.
All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
Katie, do the sewer so she can go home.
Okay, so you want to do the sewer first? Okay, the next item, Twyla?
Is Order 2011-204, 2010 sewer foreclosures.
Would you like to explain that, Steve?
Yep. Katie, our sewer clerk, will get up and talk about the liens, and this is an annual event.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Katie Burnell, and I do the sewer billing. I have prepared a list for each of you with the sewer accounts with liens that are maturing on December 16th. These liens were filed at the Androscoggin Registry of Deeds on June 16th of 2010. Prior to the filing of the liens, we sent out courtesy letters on March 22nd of 2010 to notify the sewer users that they had accounts past due, and those accounts were, or amounts I should say, were subject to the lien process. On May 14th, 2010, we mailed 240 30-day notices notifying them that the lien would be placed against their property if the outstanding amounts were not paid. And on June 16th, of those 240 notices, 147 liens were filed. We then have an 18-month process before the liens mature. 44 courtesy letters were mailed on October 17th to remind the customers of the upcoming foreclosure date, which is December 16th of 2011. And on November 4th, the notice of impending automatic foreclosure letters were mailed to the customers as well as their mortgage companies. As of today, I am down to 36 accounts, and 7 of those accounts have made payment arrangements and should have those amounts paid in full by the foreclosure date. And I'm also working with a few of the mortgage companies, trying to resolve those, as many balances as possible. And I'd like to continue my collection efforts.
Okay. So, what do we need? Yes, go ahead, Roger.
Is that higher than normal?
It's not actually. I think last year we may have had more. Last year was my first year, so it's a little fuzzy, but I think we actually mailed out more letters, or 30-day notices. And I want to say, off the top of my head, I'm thinking we filed 148 or 149 last year. So it's about the same.
Mark,
Thank you.
You all set? The one with asterisks next to it, is that,
Those are the ones that I am working with that have made payment arrangements.
Okay.
And there are a couple on there that are also, the properties will be closing as far as selling.
okay.
So that will be taking place before the 16th, so there will be a couple balances.
That was my next question, because I know a couple of these actually have sold, so I was curious.
Yeah, just waiting on a few of those.
Now, Steve, you had mentioned it in the past that sometimes up
You
before the
generally
foreclosure.
waive the liens, and so that it won't go into foreclosure if the people are working with them. I think we did that last year, right, Kate?
Okay.
And that's just for the people that have actually made arrangements, or is that for the,
All of them, so she can continue to work on all of them with the payment arrangement. So you just waive
The automatic foreclosure?
the automatic foreclosure to work with them.
is that something we need to make a motion to vote on? or?
You do.
I would make a motion, if that's what we need to do to keep working with them, that we actually forego the idea of the foreclosure and keep working with them to try to collect them in a reasonable amount of time.
I'll second that.
Makes sense to me. Anyone else have anything to add? All right, all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
Good job.
Thank you.
Phone calls probably not the easiest one to make. Sure.
Now we need an executive session. All right, and we're going to move it directly to the executive session,
All right.
as we need to discuss that before we can continue with our other business.
So Order 2011-211 is a motion to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 4056D, labor negotiations.
Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion that we move.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
All right, all those in favor of going into executive session? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
All right, we'll be back shortly. It shouldn't be too long. You all ready to go, Twyla?
Twyla, it was Fern and Lori voted to come out of executive session.
Okay, next item of business
Mm-hmm.
is the Order 2011-205, Police Sergeant's Union Contract.
Do I have a motion on that?
I'd make a motion that we accept the contract as presented.
Do you hear a second?
I'll second that.
Laura, you can second that? All right, any discussion on that? We really can't talk much because it's private, so all those in favor? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
And the next item of business?
Order 2011-206, a supplemental funds ordinance. This is the second reading. It would require a roll call vote.
All right, do I have any discussion on that from council? All right, do I hear any motions on that?
I'll make a motion that we accept the supplemental funds ordinance as written in the amount of $8,200.
Do I hear a second?
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Any further discussion?
I would like to just say that I think that moving forward, this council has got to look at the issues that when you have to foreclose on property and you have to tear the building down, that we have got to be very careful that we don't put ourselves in a situation that removing a building after the fact doesn't put us into a hurt locker to a point that we can't recover the fund. And that's if nothing else, that's something I think this council should take into very close consideration, that we don't get ourselves in a situation that we wouldn't be better off to leave the property with the original landowner and let them worry about the removal of the building. We're not a real lucrative group at this point, and these are the things that we've got to watch very carefully.
Thank you, Roger. Anyone else? All right, move to a roll call vote then.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie is absent. Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Mason's absent. Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
So 5 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, and our next item?
Order 2011-207, an ordinance amendment to Section 12-7, Ethics and Conflicts of Interest. This is the second reading. A roll call vote is required.
Do I have any discussion from council?
Any questions?
Do I hear a motion from council?
Make a motion that we accept the ordinance as written.
I'll second it.
All right, let's see. Now, do I need a roll call vote for this one, Twyla?
Yes, please.
All right.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
And Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
All right, and our next item?
Order 2011-208, ordinance amendment to Chapter 70 zoning. This is the first reading. Roll call vote is required.
All right.
This is something that the planning board has been working on for quite a long time, even prior to before I was here. Holdup was making sure we had the wellhead protection that really had to pass first. We have members of the planning board here and our code enforcement officer. If anybody has any questions, you can ask them.
You have anyone from the planning board here who'd like to just introduce this and give us a basic idea for the people in the public that might not know what this is?
Don Fellows, a member of the planning board. The zoning ordinance has been in place for some time, but the amendments to the zoning ordinance are something that I think the planning board has worked on since, well, I don't know. Maybe Roger was on the board then. I don't know. It's been a long time.
This was originally slated to be changed back in 2007 with the comprehensive plan.
Right. So it's been going much longer than me. And I'm telling you that because I don't know everything there is to know about it. I do know that of the major changes, or the major changes, are that everything has gone to a chart form of doing business and making it much easier to read and compare one zone with another. And if you look at page, example is on page 49. That's part of the chart that has the areas, where is it? That's part of the chart that has zones on it, and you can see, looking at that one, for example, rural open space 1, you can see right in front of you all the frontage requirements and everything that's associated with it, including the footnotes that go there. The major change also in zoning that happened as a result of this was rural open space 2, which was, as I understand it, part of the planning on the comprehensive plan development, and that has taken forever to get it out. It had some minor tweaks in it. If you, page 16, if I can find it. It talks about all the other zones are pretty much the same, but rural open space 2 on page 16 is introduced, and on the next page, page 17, it lays out the some of the criteria that you won't find in the chart. The purpose of that one was, again, to kind of keep the agricultural theme going and not have property divided and subdivided and re-subdivided, so that we're looking at a lot of houses along the front of the road. We did speak with the current owners and during hearings and otherwise, and actually I think this is something that they particularly like. I know there was some consideration or some concern about whether they could gift property or sell property to their own family members or whatever. So that particular, you'll notice in that particular page, 70-361, you won't see a frontage requirement for that particular space. What you do see is that minimum of 60,000 square feet and a maximum of 100,000 square feet. That 60,000 square feet, essentially 1 1/3 acres. But there also on that same section, number C says the lot frontage to depth ratio shall be 1 to 1.5. And if I get my calculator out and play with it and play with it and play with it, it's got to be 200 by 300 as a minimum, or you'll never make the 1.5 to 1. So it's a 200-foot frontage, even though it doesn't say it, and a 300-foot depth. And the other thing that happens at any subdivision that happens has to happen on a, as of this passing of this ordinance, has to happen with on an existing public road. So you can't put a road in there and then start dividing this up in the background. And so these were all considerations that came up, and again, this is the major change other than the 2 charts in the back. All the information you see in this, all these line outs, are basically because they were put in the chart. That's all I have.
Thank you, Don.
May I ask a
Yes,
question?
go ahead, Fern.
Don, for this to move forward from the planning board, it has to have a majority of the planning board to move forward to the stage, right?
Yes,
Okay, and that was done.
that was done. October last month.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Roger.
For what it's worth, I reviewed this document, and I came in, talked to Mike about it. I sat on the comprehensive steering committee back in 2007, and this is all reflectant of what came out of the comprehensive plan back then. I want to thank the planning board for doing a great job. I think that this document has come out real well, and it's going to work real well for the people of Lisbon. And I am definitely all in favor of it. I think you did a great job.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? I want to say I also worked on this a bit when I was on the planning board back 3 years ago or so. I remember working with Mike, and the beginning of this, when we started working on this, it was pretty much sort of what it's shaped up to be now, and I think you guys have done a great job on getting this to a good position where we can move forward with it. So do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept it as written.
Do I need a roll call vote for this?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I'll second that before we go in.
Right, okay. So I have a motion and a second. Now roll call.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
5 yes, 0 nay. Order passed.
All right, we'll come back for a second reading on this at our next meeting. And we'll have a public hearing then for that. If people want to speak on it then, that'll be their chance to come up and talk about it. And our next item?
Under other business, Finance Director's report.
Hello. Okay, so you all have in front of you your report for October. We'll start with the revenues. I'd mentioned last month that under the tax commitment account, a journal entry needs to be done to assign the portion of the commitment that relates to the school department to the school. I was unable to get to that before this report was done, so it will be reflected in your November report for the balance that's remaining under the uncollected column. Excise tax is just over 32% collected, and just under where we were last year at this time, which was at 33%. State revenue sharing is just over 35% collected, with 93,000 recorded for the month of October. You'll notice there was a journal entry done to the homestead account for 83,000, and the Sabatis ACO for 10,000. And this is those adjustments were to properly reflect the revenues in the prior year that was a result of the audit. And this entry was agreed to by the auditors during their review. The police department has received the first half of the Bowdoin ACO payment, which is the amount of $3,573. The moving down, the transfer station has taken in another $9,000 from permits for a year-to-date collection of $31,000. This is slightly over the budgeted $28,000, so we're looking good there. In total, the transfer station is 56% collected on their total revenues, which is actually 12% better than we were last year at this time. So things are happening down at the transfer station.
Have any questions from council on the revenue side
Oh,
there?
I'm not done
You're not done
yet.
yet. Sorry, jumping ahead.
That's okay. The rec department revenues, they currently reflect a 27% collection. However, there is a year-end audit entry adjustment that will need to be done and will be reflected in your next month's report. This entry will properly reflect that the rec department is at 74% collected. We defer their revenues that they collect at the end of the year into the new year based on the programming that they are designed for. And this is an annual entry that's done. It just hasn't been done yet. And that will move them up to 74%, as I said, but that is still slightly under where we were last year at this time, which was 82%. So, and the library is right on track at 52%, as is Beaver Park at 59%. Do you have any questions on the revenue?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When we start seeing negative balances, like on the playground, I mean, is that just reflective of just?
Yeah, that will be one of the audit entries that are done, because the revenues that were actually received at the end of last year, and the adjustment will reflect the proper revenues, which will bring that into a debit balance.
It's very confusing how that works.
It is.
When you take a positive number and subtract 6,000, end up with 21,000. It just doesn't seem like you
Unexpended,
can
yeah.
take a positive number, take away a little bit. and
Right, well,
end up-
and the credit that you see is actually from the initial, an initial audit entry that's done for revenues that came in that related to the program. Now it has to just basically be reversed, but also include what was taken in last year, so. Any further questions? Moving on to the expenses. I'm going to give this to you in a little different format than I normally do. Your report is the same, but my verbiage is going to hopefully be a little more encompassing. The total expenditures for the month of October were $911,693. This I'm not positive what you have in front of you. I did note there was a formula error in my sheet, and I don't think it got corrected on yours, but the total monthly expenditures for October were $911,000. Of this, 30%, or $276,000, was related to personnel services, which is inclusive of wages and benefits. 48%, or $442,000, was related to lease purchase payments, and this is primarily due to the principal payments that come due every year in October. Contractual services made up approximately 9% at $84,000. This is primarily due to IT support, where we prepay for their coverage. It is also inclusive of our electricity, telephone, and waste disposal fees. Capital purchases made up just under 9% at $79,000, primarily due to the bond payments at $66,000, as well as new computer upgrades, carpet replacement, camera installation at MTM, backflow preventer maintenance, and a blitz fire kit for the fire department. And finally, repair and maintenance supplies made up 4% of October's total expenditures at $36,000, which is primarily due to the gas fuel purchase, pump testing, and a rebuilt generator, as well as band and pipe from EJP for road work. So those were the major expenditures for the month. Do you have any further questions for me on those? Quickly, on a side note, as of October 31st, we have collected 95%, or $4.5 million, of the September portion of the tax commitment. I have finalized the draft financial statements, including the footnotes and MD&A sections, and they've been sent to the auditors for their final review, and currently they are scheduled to come before you on December 6th to give their report. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Jessica.
I'm all set, thank you.
You say, Larry?
I said I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And our next item, Twyla?
Is Town Manager's report.
Department heads are preparing to present their capital improvement program, just to update it and bring new things into if they have to. We're consolidating some of the smaller items, 10,000, above 10,000, which wasn't in like the fire department budget. That will come before you December 20th at that meeting for approval, which is required by charter. Scott Benson and I today met with the Mid-Coast business leaders. Scott meets with them once a month. This particular meeting, he made a presentation on all the activity that's going on in Lisbon, all the demographics. It's a pretty strong group of business community people who are looking at development projects all over this area, and we got very high marks. We're one of the only communities out of the Brunswick, Topsom, and Lisbon area that actually has a business park that's going to be ready and up and running, hopefully, at least for some development in the spring. And that's Scott Kelly's site, which is pretty good. Next week, Tuesday, we're trying to set up a meeting so you can meet with all the boards and committees. This is a follow-up to your last meeting. I have not got confirmation back from all of them, but hopefully I will. And we are trying to set up a meeting, Rick Green and I, with the school committee, so you can talk about budget. It looks like we're pushing that into December. I haven't heard back from Rick after the meeting last night, but they couldn't meet this month, so I'll get you up to date on that. So, and that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Eldridge?
Street lights.
Street lights. What's the question?
A question that my mom asks me every day.
Oh, she's on the list. We are putting back some of the street lights on dead ends. Your mom is one of them. And other street lights that are on areas that are non-dead ends. We have a list of people. I had another person come to me today who is requesting us to take a hard look at that. Up on Upper Main Street, I know it's tough to get used to when all of a sudden at nighttime it's actually dark versus well lit up, but we will consider all the requests and get back to you once the project is all the lights are taken down that we have, so, okay? But your mom's is on the list, along
Thank
with a
you,
few
Steve.
others, not just Rogers.
And next item, Twyla?
Is under appointments, Order 2011-209, Board of Assessment Review.
You have one request, volunteer,
And there was open seats.
excuse me?
There was an open.
Yes, yeah, we had a resignation from one member Due to family obligations, they couldn't do anything, but, so Miriam Morgan Alexander has volunteered.
All right. Do I have any discussion or a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the appointment.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor of appointing Miriam Morgan Alexander? And opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
Thank you, Miriam.
And our next order of business?
Order 2011-209, Council Chairman's appointment of Ethics Panel Chair.
Okay, and that's entirely up to me, so I'll go ahead and reappoint Mr. David Bowie back to his position that he's previously held as chairman of that committee. I think he's an intelligent and well-spoken individual, and I think he's level-headed and does a good job leading that committee, so I want to keep him up right where he is at.
I'll second that. I'll make the motion to accept.
Actually, it's entirely on me to appoint
Oh,
it.
it's totally up to
totally
you?
up to me, yes. because
Power in the
I have to pick someone from that board anyway, so I couldn't, you know.
I will say, Mark, that that was an excellent choice.
Thank you. I appreciate the support, Roger. All right, and our next order of business?
Is Council Communications.
Anyone on the council who has anything to say tonight? Go ahead, Roger.
Boy, where do I start? First of all, I want to congratulate Lisa Ward for winning my seat on the council. I want to thank all the people of the community for voting for me. 1,103 votes was a real good showing, and I appreciate it very much. I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to represent you over the last 3 years. It's definitely been interesting. One thing that I do want to bring up that has been very dear to my heart for the last 3 years was the ability for the townspeople to vote on their budget. And I'm hopeful that with a 2,025 to 514 vote, that this council will move forward and get the budget so the people to vote on department by department. I know that starting possibly next week or the week after, I'm going to be sitting out there looking back this way, and that's one thing that I'm not going to let go. I'm going to fight for that right to the bitter end. I think this is something the people want. They've demonstrated that quite clearly, and one way or another, we're going to get it. One thing that I will say is that it's been a very good learning experience, and I didn't accomplish much of anything that I thought I wanted to, but maybe in the future we can do some things differently and make changes. And again, thanks to the people of Lisbon very much, and I appreciate the 3 years that you gave me. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? All right. I would like to also say thank you, Roger, for your service, and I'd like to extend that on behalf of the council. Thank you for your 3 years of service, and hope you continue to prosper in the future.
So work on it.
I'm sure we'll see you around. All right, and our next item, Twyla?
Is to adjourn.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion?
Go ahead.
I'll make the
second
motion.
All right, and all those in favor of adjourning and opposed?
Order passed, 5-0.
We are adjourned.